The Katy Prairie Restoration Presentation. The Katy Prairie is slowly disappearing due to urbanization. We will discuss the ecological and economical issues as well as what is being done to save it. The Katy Prairie is part of the Texas Gulf Coast Plains. On the map of the Texas-Louisiana coastal plains, the star indicates the approximate location of Katy. It is made up of tall grasses of the grassland and marshes of the wetland. The main animals that used to roam the area were bison, ducks, and prairie chickens. Native Americans were the first humans on the land because of the hunting of the bison. The Katy Prairie remained untouched by humans into the end of the 19th century. In the 1870s, farmers began to move into the area due to the fertile grounds and started growing potatoes, corn, and raising cattle. Because of the wetlands, rice farming moved into Katy in the 1930s. Rice dominated the Katy Prairies through the 1960s. This harmed the prairie chicken's existence because of flooding of grasslands for rice, but did increase the number of ducks and other migratory birds. With the increase in birds, there was also an increase of hunters to the area. In the 1980s, Houston, the largest city to the east of Katy, started to move westward, and so began the urbanization of the Katy Prairie. Rice farming was the first environmental issue to affect the Katy Prairie. Farmers flooded grassland in order to grow more rice. This messed with the natural habitat of the prairie chicken and of the tall grasses. It was beneficial to the migratory birds, though. Hunters became abundant due to the increase in birds from the rice fields. A new predator to the area decreased populations of some of the birds. Urbanization is the most harmful issue that has harmed the Katy Prairie, though. As Houston moved westward, land in Katy was bought up to build subdivision and commercial properties. The number of farms declined, and the ecology of the Katy Prairie was changed due to this construction. As mentioned before, the Katy Prairie is part of the Texas Coastal Prairie. Data given by the Katy Prairie Conservation Group shows how much prairies as a whole in the Texas coastal region have disappeared. Once the prairies took up 65,000 square kilometers, which is equivalent to about 25,000 square miles, and now they are reduced to 260 square kilometers, which is about 100 square miles. The biotic and abiotic communities of the Katy Prairie have been affected by the urbanization of Katy. Tall grasses and marshes of the grasslands and wetlands have greatly declined. Some animals, such as the prairie chicken, are almost extinct, and with the rate of urbanization now occurring in the area, more animals will be moved to that list. Join our group as we look at the ecological, economical effects, as well as what is being done to try and save the Katy Prairie.
The grasslands and wetlands ecosystems are the two main habitats that cover the large acreage that make up Katy Prairie and are home to many birds, waterfowl, and other wildlife. Over the last several years, these habitats have been shrinking, mainly due to human development of subdivisions that are pushing westward from Houston and from the completion of the Grand. With the ecosystem at Katy Prairie being one of the most endangered due to the urbanization and human development, it is becoming more difficult for wildlife to maintain a life here. These grass and wetlands are crucial to the wildlife survival. Many use these habitats for not only food and nutrients, but for shelter and protections from other wildlife invaders. For example, the Chinese tallow is one of the prairie's most impactful intruders. Once the tree roots itself in an area, it spreads at an alarming rate. Even when you cut one down, 20 more will rise up in its place. With its poisonous leaves and berries, it is incredibly harmful to the wildlife in the area, and it can outcompete any of the native species. One of the animals that will spend their whole life at Katy Prairie is the malted duck. Unfortunately, the number that still maintains residency is rapidly declining. This species needs both wetland and grassland habitats to survive. Using the grasslands for nesting, and with the development of urbanization and home development that is taking over the grassland areas, it is becoming more and more difficult for the animals to survive. Another example of how home development and city expansion has an impact on animals is with one of KPC's first known species, the prairie chicken. Without viable habitats, there are few left not only at Katy Prairie, but also in the world, with only 1% of the population remaining. For the abiotic communities, rich nutrient soil is something that is needed for structure and fertility of plants and survival for all wildlife. Without soil that can grow their plants for food, then the current wildlife living at Katy Prairie may begin to decline. For example, tallgrass prairies can nurture some of the richest soils, but with 50 to 70% of their soil losing carbon due to climate changes and soil erosion, it is no longer rich and viable, but instead a dry, sand-like dirt.
One economic impact of the destruction of the Katy Prairie is in the farming. Farmers were the founders of Katy, Texas. In old Katy, you can still find feed stores and sometimes see tractors going down the road, but it is no longer the farming community it once was. That is magnified by all the old abandoned rice mills that litter the area. While farming, specifically rice farming, wasn't the best for the grasslands, it still wasn't as destructive, and you could find the natural Katy Prairie around these farms. Urbanization bought up land, county and private, to turn into subdivisions and commercial properties. As taxes go up in the area, the number of farms decrease. Some families that farmed for decades in Katy are now in other jobs or out of jobs, and that hurts the Katy economy. Another economic impact of the destruction of the prairie is tourism, specifically ecotourism. In the past decade, ecotourism has increased substantially. The world is more environmentally involved. People want to see the beauty of nature and plants and animals in their natural habitats. This type of tourism isn't going away either. Millennials are very concerned for the environment, so ecotourism may grow in the coming years. Katy, unfortunately, could miss out on this moneymaker. While there is the standard outlet mall and soon-to-be water park that will attract tourists, at the end of the day, Houston has seen these attractions come and go. The Katy Prairie would be more economical to keep up because one would just need to protect it. As it occurs naturally, there isn't much upkeep. The Katy Prairie could attract tourists for years to come. Hunting is another tourist area that Katy will soon miss out on. Since the rise of the rice farms, birds and deer hunting has been popular in the area. There are small meat markets in Katy that will process these animals into sausage, jerky, or anything else the hunters want. With a decrease in the animals' habitats, though, there is a decrease in the number of birds and deer. Hunting season won't be as popular in the area anymore, which will affect hotels, restaurants, and the mom-and-pop meat markets that help the Katy economy.
Now, moving on to the threats that endanger the well-being of the Katy Prairie. Now, although the Katy Prairie itself is doing well, the preserve still faces tangible and serious threats. The threats that the Katy Prairie are currently facing are mostly due to human impacts on wildlife, such as intents to make way for highways and a bullet train. The most recent attempt to make way for a highway was Highway 36A. As you can tell from the map, the highway was originally planned to cut through the Katy Prairie, but thanks to the human intervention from nonprofit land trusts such as the Katy Prairie Conservancy, who work hard to raise awareness for the need to preserve the land, protests have been published in the Houston Chronicle. For example, in their report, Paving the Prairie, they express their need to preserve the land. In the quote, the Katy Prairie isn't just open land ready for paving, it is a precious place, a nature preserve, and we need to preserve it. Although with the help of the awareness that the Katy Prairie Conservancy has raised, there are still obstacles that are preventing progress from actually being made. The biggest obstacle being private property. Many engineers who are pro-progress believe that plowing through the Katy Prairie is the path of least resistance, and that pushing developments that would cut through the prairie would be better because it would not directly affect the property of Houston homeowners. Studies are still being made today to ensure which projects could be proposed in the future as alternatives to Highway 36A. But hopefully, with the collective voices of those who have helped derail Highway 36A, we can look forward to a brighter future for the prairie. Now, with the issue regarding the bullet train, although the construction plans don't directly impact the Katy Prairie itself, there has been a lot of concern regarding the noise that the train will make and its impact on local fauna and ranching or farming. This leads to the final obstacle, which would be the simple fact that nothing is 100% certain in regards to the construction and the impacts that the train's presence will have on the Katy Prairie's preserve system. In October 2014, the Katy Prairie Conservancy staff attended public scoping meetings where the proposers of the high-speed rail line discussed the project and invited public comment. That is where it was learned that 9 possible routes were considered, but only 2 were selected for further study. This uncertainty is what makes Katy Prairie so hard to preserve. And hopefully, with the help and awareness from groups such as the Katy Prairie Conservancy, the preserve will continue to be the beautiful beacon of nature that it has always been. Thank you.